Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And whatever you think that means, chances are we mean it too. And every week we take an hour and talk about one element of that. And we hope that it resonates with you. And by we, it's me, JDK Winnikin, and my lovely co-host, my friend, my co-collaborator, my business partner, so many things. The person who makes doing this show so much fun, the straw that stirs the drink, Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great.
Great. Welcome back to another episode.
Oh, thanks.
Excited to have you. You've been doing this for a while now. I appreciate it.
It's been like, what, a year and a half?
Year and a half, something like that. We're almost to episode 100, everybody. That is coming up around the corner pretty quickly.
We're going to have to do something really special for that.
Yeah, we'll think of something. But today, we are going to talk about why it's not a good idea to try and fix somebody.
Woo, people are going to feel called out. Maybe.
And what does that mean? And I just want to preface it by saying we all have a tendency to want to do this. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about a matter of degree, starting with people that are fully unaware that they do this all the time to those who actually are aware that they do this all the time and are willing to try it. But what we're here to say is this is not a really good way to build a better life with resilience. And like we talked about last week, a life of meaning, happiness, wholeness, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. In fact, the idea for this episode came from last week's episode, Ashley.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
It did. So this is something that I know too, Ashley, you and I both see in our coaching quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Whether our clients know that they're doing that or not, they might be trying to change people in their life in some way, shape, or form. And what we're going to talk about today is why not only, and you pointed this out to me, why not only is that counterproductive, but actually by not doing that, by not trying to fix people, we actually improve our odds of better connecting with them, accepting with them, and having better relationships with them.
I think if you're wanting to fix somebody, it really starts with you. It does.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, let's be honest. You can't fix people because, first of all, people are not broken.
There you go.
So you're not piecing people back together with glue. Mm-hmm. But I think if you are at a point where you are trying to fix somebody, there is a truth in them that you are unwilling to accept.
Right. Yeah. We could probably go, there's probably a truth about yourself that you're not willing to accept.
Yes.
Because what's the motivation of trying to turn them into something that you really like? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to fill a void in yourself or avoid something in yourself that perhaps you should be taking a look at? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh, this one's fun.
It's a spicy one.
Yeah, this is a spicy one for sure. Okay. So how have you seen this in your life, Ashley? Maybe not in you trying to fix somebody or maybe someone trying to fix you. It could be either one of those. Mm-hmm. Or how do you see it around you? Why do you see this as such a big problem? Wherever you want to go.
I see it a lot with usually in couples where one party is not very happy with something of the other party. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's their lifestyle choice of like what they eat, how they spend their time, whether they're an active person or not, you know, how they take care of their space that they live in. And they get really frustrated, you know, and it's kind of interesting because in some regards, it's like, okay, if it's like they're messy, you're clean, you guys live in a shared environment and it can get frustrating and so on and so forth in that regard. But the ones that are very perplexing is when somebody is unhappy with their partner's lifestyle. Like maybe they're not active and they don't eat very good. And they're like, I want them to do this because I want them to be healthy. I want them to live a long time. I want them to feel better. And they, for whatever reason, think their partner's just not understanding. Like they don't know how that they can have a better life, you know. But they don't. It's like they don't understand. Like, oh, I must teach them how that they can be better.
Yes, if I just show them.
Yes, if I just show them and like pound it into their brain every day, eventually it will click. However, I always posture the question of, do they want that? Or is that you that wants that for them? Because I bet you if they wanted it, they would do it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't want to be healthy, or at least healthy to the standard you're expecting.
Or there's something in the way that they're not able to admit, which is a different problem.
Yes.
Right.
And maybe they're doing it on purpose because they don't like you nagging them. about it.
Oh yeah,
But,
resistance.
You know?
Yeah, because
But-
think of we all love to be told what to do. Right?
Oh, yeah.
All of us.
That is like,
all of
I mean,
us.
some people do.
Don't lie. Those of
Some
you.
people do.
Yeah, well,
Because then they feel like if they're just following orders, they can't be wrong.
that's true.
Which that's a whole nother
Keeps them safe.
situation.
Oh yeah, that's another topic. You're right. I stand corrected. Okay.
You know.
Generally speaking, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, like if someone would be like, I want them to eat better and I want them to be, active and healthy because I want them to live a long time and whatnot. And I'm like, is that for you or for them?
Mm-hmm.
When I hear those things, I'm like, that sounds like it's probably for them, but it's for them because of you.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to last a long time for you. You want them to be around. You want them to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to be able to keep up with you and not be a burden to take care of later.
Yeah, they don't want to be embarrassed by you.
Yes.
quote, unquote.
And I'm like, that's a you thing.
Yeah.
Not a them thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I'm like, you're not living in the truth of who that other person is.
Mm-hmm.
If you really accepted the truth of them,
Mm-hmm.
then this would not be an issue.
Right. And it's really not what the problem is. That's the thing. It's the cover for whatever the issue is. So to take your example, one partner wants their other partner to eat more healthy, be more active, that type of thing. The other partner is resistant to, for whatever reason. They don't like to be told what to do. They lack the confidence. It brings up things that they're uncomfortable with. They might be struggling with other things. That is actually not the root problem by itself. If there is a disconnect there, the attempt to fix of do this instead and you'll be happier because you'll be doing what I want you to do, it's actually a conversation or a series of conversations that go well underneath that. We have a disconnect between the priorities that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be active. You don't like to be active. I also like to spend time with you. I would like to spend time with you. I'm also concerned about your health. And yes, I do have a desire to be around with you for as long as possible. And it brings up fear for me that the fact that you don't want to take care of yourself means it's not as important for you to spend that time with me. Notice where we've gone all of a sudden.
Yeah.
We've gone into a very different conversation, which is actually the issue. Because otherwise, we're responding to our base brain functions. And this is what I mean by this. The attempt to change someone, to fix someone, really in the brain, is to control them. And not because we want to control them, make them do everything we want, but because the brain says, we have brain centers that say, if you control this, you're safe. If you control this, this is not a threat. Now, that once derived from physical threats. Control your environment. Instead of being attacked by all these wild animals, put up a fence, right? Get a stick, defend yourself, right?
Stick.
Build a fire, right? Keeps these things away. Those are the base functions. But this can happen when we feel emotionally unsafe. And so we think in order to control our emotions and make ourselves emotionally feel safe, we have to change everything around us that doesn't fit that. But that's just operating on the brain's most basic of levels, because it's really about control, right? And chances are, now that I'm framing it as control, people go, oh, okay, I don't like that part as much.
Well, all of a sudden they're like, well, that's not me.
Well, that's not me, right?
Probably very much you, actually.
Right. And there's other things at play. You're talking about relationships. Our attachment styles matter, right?
Yes, they do.
Right. The people that tend to want to fix people more than others are those who have anxious attachment styles, meaning they want to lean in, right? And, they want to force something. Avoidance, not as much. However, those aren't just mutually exclusive either. You can be a little bit of both, right? There's all these varying degrees. I'm varying degrees of both, my attachment styles. So I have to be careful from the other way. From the avoidance style, it can be attempt to control, can just be, don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to do this. That's controlling as well, because then you think by cutting something out, you're avoiding something. You are protecting yourself from some impulse or some influence that's trying to change you.
Right. Or you're taking the control away from somebody else.
Correct.
Putting it back in your court.
Correct. Exactly. And this is just on the brain's most basic levels, right? So that's overfunctioning, right? People with anxious attachments, because they want to reduce that uncertainty, right? And avoidance, withdraw, so they can regain control of themselves internally, right? So those things together right away, you have to think about. But that's not just in romantic relationships. We do the same thing with our friends. We do the same things with our family. We do the same thing with our coworkers, right? So All of these things tend to, be a part of this. And I think also social cues, right? Because I only do this because I care, right? Is such a common
that's
refrain.
a line. Again, a bumper sticker.
Right,
Excuse me, because you care.
Exactly.
I've seen care look a lot different than the people that say I do this because I care.
Right. Yeah. And so we think, and we may actually believe we're coming at it from a position of, in the case of relational ones, from a place of love, or maybe in a work environment from a place of leadership. Right?
I was going to say that one can be very tricky.
Yeah.
Because in the idea of, as we framed it, of like not trying to fix somebody, when you're in management and leadership, there is one thing about having rules and standards and, standard order procedure of things. But then there also are moments where you task somebody with something and you let them know this is the task and this is the expected outcome. And to give them hopefully the freedom to get from point A to point B, how best feels right and sees fit for them, as long as they can execute it to reach the end goal. And you telling them, no, you're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way. I'm going to fix this. That can be very difficult because that's where that bleeds into, are you leading? Are you micromanaging? Leading is you're giving somebody the opportunity to figure it out and get to what you expect out of them. But then you can micromanage.
Yep.
And it's a constant of like, I need to fix this. I need to fix you. You're doing it wrong. You need to do it my way. And that doesn't mean that they are doing it wrong.
Right. It doesn't. And yet we tend to believe that, even if we're not conscious about it, we tend to believe that there's something about them not doing something the way we want them to do it that we are uncomfortable with, and therefore we see as a threat. But really what we're saying, if we think about it, we are showing our own discomfort with their emotions, with people's flaws, or their choices, because we don't like them for some reason, right? And that reason actually has almost everything to do with us. Now, if we're talking about things they're doing to other people that are harmful or harmful to themselves, that's one thing.
Right.
So that's one thing. So this isn't something that universally across the board. We're not saying if you know somebody who is, abusing drugs on a regular basis or abusing other people, you shouldn't be pointing this out to them that this is bad or doing something about it. We're talking about in our relational experiences with people, not taking them for who they are and instead being so uncomfortable with some element of them that we're trying to fix it. We're not willing to take them or not willing to let them be who they are. And then we say things like, well, I just want them to be happier. Let's pause on that one. Maybe that's true, but is that as true as you just don't want to worry as much?
Could be.
I tend to think in most cases it's I don't want to have to worry about this anymore. Think about it here's an example. It comes up quite a bit. I have a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. I've talked about him on the show before, Seth. His wife passed away of cancer about 1.5 years ago. And that is its own experience, right? As he'll tell you, his grief experience. And I've been on the ground floor with him for a lot of it. Now, one of the things he's starting to encounter, though, about 18 months after, is people wanting him to, quote unquote, move on, right? When are you going to do X again? When are you going to think about this again? When are you going to date again? All these kinds of things. This idea that he should, quote unquote, be beyond a certain point, right? And rightfully so, Seth tells them exactly what he thinks of that, right, when it comes up, which is good. But this is the thing, is this idea that, well, we just want him to be happy. We don't want to see him grieving. That has everything to do with them, not wanting to see him grieving anymore, not wanting to see him sad, not wanting to be uncomfortable because he's sad, because he's grieving. And that's the thing. It's like, that's not seeing Seth.
It's not accepting the truth of him.
Accepting the truth of him.
And to be honest, and this might not land well with some people, but I think there are times when people say, I want them to find happiness, is because they are tired of dealing with somebody who is still grieving. They're like over the story. They're like, okay, it's been 1.5 years. It's been 2 years. It's been 10 years. You're not over it yet.
Yeah. How long do I have to listen to this before things can get back to normal?
Yes. And then they grow weary of it, and then they want to either fix it or distance.
Right. Rather than recognize that everybody's on that journey, it's going to look different for everybody, right? And so for me, the way I think about it, and that's never been an impulse for me, right, is to tell them, hey, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? Because I know from my own experience of having to rebuild my own life and kind of figure things out anew, I certainly don't want a timetable being thrust upon me by the people that are most important to me because I can't guarantee I can do something within a given time. So, all right. Well, we've kicked this off well, Ashley. I think we have a lot to talk about here. I can tell we're both getting fired up by it. So we will be back here in just a minute on Staying Power. We'll continue and we'll dig into this a little bit more about where this comes from and how we can start not trying to change other people and why it actually can improve things for us. Okay, we'll be right back just.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah,
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
On the path to good health and well-being? Alternative Talk 1150 is the station for you.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
We're talking about why it's just not a good idea to try and fix them. Because it doesn't work. It doesn't fix them, doesn't help you. And in fact, it leads to the very thing you're worried about in the first place when you're trying to fix them, even if it is well-intentioned. So I do want to put that out there, right? When we talk about people manipulating others or not being honest, it can always sound like we mean it in a real pejorative sense, like they're aware that we do this, right? We just struggle with this as people. All right, so Ashley, I'm thinking let's talk a little bit about what's actually happening when we are wanting to do this. And, also I can think of a few examples in my own life that I'm willing to share on this. Yeah, if we get to it, we'll get there. But okay. I want to point out kind of a larger truth at the front end of this. I mentioned earlier that really our attempt to fix things or fix people is an attempt to control them, because in that control, we feel safety, right? And predictability, right? And that's just on a base, fundamental, neurological level. But here's the thing. Connection between people is what integrates them and creates that sense of safety,
right?
Not controlling them, right? So you cannot control somebody and connect with them at the same time. It literally is impossible in the brain to connect with somebody and control them at the same time. You cannot be in a control state and a connected state at the same time.
Right.
It's just as impossible as if you stop breathing to have oxygen running through your system.
And there are some people who think me controlling them is me connecting with them. I see this with parents and children often. This is how our relationship is. This is how it best functions. I must control them so they make wise choices and don't fall into potholes and pits and whatnot along the way.
Yep, absolutely. And one example I think of this that I can explain this in a way that maybe people understand is I saw it with a client who was sharing a story with me. He was caught very unawares by this reaction he had. He was out with his partner. They've been together for a while. So this isn't something new, right? It's been something that they've built for a while. He was out with his partner, feeling really connected to her in this moment. And then a person she knew from high school came up, guy, said hi, sat down, started talking. She was enjoying this. And all of a sudden he said, I felt so threatened.
Really?
Uh-huh. Felt so threatened. And after they left, he said, I peppered her with questions. I was, all this stuff. And all of a sudden I felt myself going, I don't want her to talk. I don't want her to find this guy on social media. I don't want them to. All of a sudden, he said, I had this urge like this. And she said, you're wanting to control me, aren't you? All of a sudden, he went from connected to control. Mm-hmm. And he obviously could not hold the two together, right? Sure. Couldn't keep those two things together. And she, of course, picked up on it because she's the other side of that connection. So she is going to understand when that connection has been broken and there's an attempt to control.
And I mean, really interesting example, but very good for her to be able to, in the moment, not react and retaliate with like getting snarky.
That's what I told him.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
She just smacked you verbally upside the head, and good for her.
Absolutely.
Because it just called the moment into question.
Yeah.
And it gave him a moment because even though it might have had some emotional charge from her, she is saying, I see you. Mm-hmm. I see what you're doing.
Yep. I see it and I don't like it.
And I don't like it. And do you want to do this?
Right, exactly. She was having a different parasympathetic response than he was. Mm-hmm. So what was happening to him was a perceived threat, in this case, a social threat, right? Took him out of the connective state, which in neuroscience is called the ventral vagal state. Mm-hmm. Took him out of that and thrust him headlong into sympathetic, right? Which is fight or flight, control, argue, fix, right? Or it could have, for some people, gone into what's called dorsal vagal, which is complete shutdown, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of fight, it was short. So that can easily happen too, right? And you cannot connect in that state, right? You simply can't. The best you can do if you're the other person in this is to recognize what's happening, like she did in this case, and keep the space open as much as possible without crossing her own boundaries, of course, right? Okay. So that's that's some of the things that happen, right? I mean, there's other examples too, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are. I don't really have any that come to mind, so I'm not sure if you're expecting me to share any. But,
well, I mean, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
How easily do you attune to somebody else's emotional state?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Why is that a tough question?
Why are you laughing at me?
Well, because you're laughing, and I'm not sure why you're laughing. So I'm laughing because you're laughing. We're uncertainty in our laughing.
I feel like I, at times, can very much attune to other people's feelings and emotions. And there are other times where I see them and I'm like, I'm not partaking. However,
is there a difference in the people that we're talking about? Yeah. Are the people that you tend to feel more attuned towards people you're closer with?
No, I mean, I suppose that's probably part of it, but there are certain things where I'm like, circumstantially, I'm like, you're having a rough day because you decided you were going to have a rough day because you did X, Y, Z, and you knew it was going to bring you a rough day. So sometimes I'm like, that's your problem to fix. However, there are some times where, and actually I will say this is like one of the biggest compliments I probably have received in a very long time. And maybe because I always have felt that I don't naturally connect really well on people's like emotional states. I'm certainly not like a self-proclaimed empath at all. I am like the opposite of that. I always have felt that. I don't naturally just feel emotional when other people are emotional, whatnot. However, I had somebody that I knew that I see from time to time, like very sparingly, maybe a couple times a year. And they had shared something that was very, very difficult. And I just was naturally like listening and giving them space to talk and share. And I was just commenting, like, that must be really difficult. And I spent a moment putting myself in her shoes. And that was like a year ago. And I ran into her recently and she thanked me for that. And she like gave me this huge hug. And she's like, there are very few people that just from me sharing the words can really feel and grasp the pain. And it's like you literally felt the pain and took it from me for a few minutes. And it gave me so much relief and just to know that you saw what I was going through and you have no experience of it, but you really felt it with me. And I was blown away because I'm like, I didn't know I knew how to do that.
Well, we all have the ability to do that.
That was a very cool experience. Unfortunately, she was going through stuff, but it was, it showed that like you can connect.
Well, you answered my question, right? You attuned to
Yes,
somebody. Now,
yes.
in that case, you attuned and opened up space. Empathy entered the picture, right? All that. What we can do, though, in that process that's known as mirroring, we unconsciously pick up on other people's emotional states, right? When you walk into a room where there's just been a huge argument.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Or when you walk to a room where things are tense, right? You can feel that. And we attune to that. And then we have a tendency, again, to drop out of the connective and either into the sympathetic or the dorsal. We either shut down and protect ourselves, or we want to fix it suddenly. And the reason why we want to fix it is because we don't want to feel that way anymore. So let's change the vibe in here, right? And do that. That's something that we do, right? That's one reason why we do it. We want everything. We want the equilibrium to come to a place where we are comfortable. Not recognizing that the reality might be you just can't do that in the moment. It's not going to change. So there's that. And then, of course, another reason we're trying to try and fix people is we think overt influence will actually do it. When actually study after study shows trying to overtly change something about someone very rarely works.
It just by nature, it can work that way. We actually learned this a few weeks ago when we had a guest in here, and she was saying, if say your partner's in a really bad mood, down and out, just upset or depressed or whatnot, and you don't know what to say, you don't know how to cheer them up, and you don't know what to do, and you're feeling that pressure of like, I should do something to fix and help and make the situation better. And she was saying that just you being a little more up on the scale and being near them can actually help change their state. And that really was impactful for me. And I've taken that and I'm like, you know what? I'm not thinking of like, oh, well, you can't, you and your gray clouds over there can't affect me over here. And I
tend to do that
sometimes
too, right?
I used to be like that when I was younger. I would just avoid people and I would shut down in myself so they can't affect me. And now I have since learned of like, no, I'm just
we call it boundaries when we do that.
Gonna totally embrace
right.
the goodness that I do have. And I'm just gonna be like a little lighthouse for those people and shed a little light, and it might help them. You see this time and time again sometimes, I guess. You see this sometimes that people who are like, oh, I wish that they had healthier habits. If you start having really healthy habits, sometimes it will naturally prompt them to do it. Sometimes it doesn't.
And invite them too.
But
that's the thing.
Yes. And especially if you're doing things that don't seem so far out of reach, there is a way to kind of draw them in naturally. No pressure, no expectation. It's welcomed. Even if you just put your shoes on and go for a walk with me instead of me running 10 miles or something, like
matters.
Right.
Yeah, it does. And what I like about what you're talking about is that it avoids that trap of overestimating how influential we actually are, right? By telling somebody or doing things or trying to fix something. Because again, in the brain and in the body, when the brain senses attempted coercion, it fights or it shuts down. Again, not connecting, right? So, and of course, all these things that we do, we tell ourselves it's because we want our relationships to be better, which means we want them to be connected. But then we do these types of things, if that's what we're doing, that actually are counterproductive to that. That guarantee in the end, what we don't want to happen will be happening. That's part of it. The last thing I would mention here that I think is important is projection.
Oh, projection.
Yes. Pointing out, trying to change things in other people that are actually projections of what we don't like about ourselves. Yeah. You seen this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
I see it a lot. And when that person's usually there complaining about, whoever the other person is or what that they want to change, I'm like, well, why don't you start doing that yourself? Like, let's try it with you, actually. Let's make this a little bit more about you and a little less about them and see what we can do here.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. Yeah.
And see how that feels. What does that do?
Oh, yeah. It's an automatic response for me with the things that I find when I'm really bothered by what somebody's doing or how they're doing things. I immediately am taking a look at, okay, what is this bringing up in me that I don't like? And I can usually spot it pretty quickly. Doesn't mean that what they're doing is necessarily okay, right? But my desire to try and change it is what we're talking about. Not me being irritated by it, right? But my attempt, if I act on that in such a way that I'm trying to change that, right? Because I'm irritated by it, or I'm annoyed by it, or I'm angered by it, there might be something in me that I might be supercharging that. And if I can connect to that, it might not make me feel any different about what that person's doing or not doing. But it is going to help me not step into this thing like I got to try and fix it. Right.
Well, I mean, who are you to pass judgment on another person anyways?
It's true.
Do you think you are so much higher than them and so much greater than them that you know better?
Right.
Who put you in charge of somebody else and told you that you know what's best for another person? We can say that we know certain things based off of generality of things. Like we know certain things are good and we know certain things are not good. But for that person, how do you know?
Yeah, we don't. And again, the particularities are always unique to these things. My point is not that somehow we should not have beliefs that what a person is doing or not doing A, B, or C. We should just be, oh, okay, whatever. We don't have to like it. We don't have to think it's for us. But when we try to change something, we run the risk, a deep risk, and it's actually biologically proven, that we are going to do further damage more so in trying to do that, particularly if we're not willing to have the underlying conversations. But in order to do that, we have to understand what's underlying the impulses.
Yes.
Right, to do this, the emotional states of that. I can think of an example from my own life, because really what we're going to get to in the third segment will be more about this. Letting go of that desire to control or to fix will actually bring us closer to the goals we have in trying to fix or control, right? If we are aware of what we are doing and not doing, we're aware of the fact that there is always risk, right? Always risk and vulnerability involved. That's where the connective state in the body and the brain is so vital, because that's the part that isn't obsessed with control and safety, right? That's the part of us, that ventral vagal state is the part that is open to connection and is willing to sit through discomfort and risk for the connective part of that that brings a sense of better well-being, a sense of belonging, a sense of love, sense of appreciation, of acceptance. That part of us is willing to go through that. But wow, it's still a risk.
It is. Well, because, going through something like that, especially if you don't know for how long it's going to be, it is taxing. It is a sacrifice of yourself. And in order to do something like that, you must be incredibly sold on the outcome. And the outcome's not always guaranteed. But you must dedicate yourself to the idea that if this works, it's worth it.
Right.
And even if it doesn't work, doesn't come out the way you wanted it to, the sacrifice was still worth it.
Yeah.
Because you thought it was for a good cause.
Well, yes. And connection isn't an outcome. Connection isn't an outcome. Connection is a state. It's a state of being. It's a state of belongingness. It's a state of awareness within oneself and then with two other people. And I know that sounds woo-woo on the surface of it, right? And some people might dismiss it for that reason. But it's actually biological and neurological. And in fact, it's the thing that seems to define our sense of purpose and our drive, right? And all of that. And so when we come back from our second break, we'll dig into that. And I do have an example I want to mention from my own life that I think will be instructive, or I hope will be.
Okay.
But we'll also, when we come back, we will do our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take 2 minutes to talk about this week. It's a triumph, something good that happened last week, and share a little bit about it, all in the name of vulnerability and learning more about each other and living this out in real time. So we'll do that right when we come back from our break. So stick around.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. If you're struggling with mental health, you should know that there are resources out there that can help. And it's okay to talk about it if you need to. One place to get started with information is loveyourmindtoday.org. Loveyourmindtoday.org offers a range of guides, instructions, and insights for dealing with difficult situations or getting through a tough time. If you're struggling with mental health, get the help you need, because most people out here really care. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Bringing good vibes to the Puget Sound and the world. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about the futility involved in trying to fix people for a lot of reasons and covering a lot of ground. Thank you, Ashley, for all of what you've contributed to this. I think it's been really great. Before we dig into the last part of that, though, it is time for our weekly segment. This week, it is 2 Minutes of Triumph. Here we go.
Yes!
Okay.
I always look to see what you're going to do.
I know, because I was
something ridiculous.
Something ridiculous with the yes. I really like the yes. And if you want to know what that is and you're listening and you're not watching the stream, you'll need to watch the stream. Go to our YouTube channel, and you can find that just by looking on YouTube. All right. Anyway, Ashley, you are first on this 2 Minutes of Triumph.
Oh, it's me. Okay. This one, it felt kind of silly, but it came to mind. I was so excited the other day, because winter's coming now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pulling out all my winter clothes, and I put on a pair of, I think it's pants, like a suit outfit. And it fits so well. And I was so excited because, you laugh, because I've been in a very busy season of life, and it feels like the last 6 months have just been a debacle of I don't know what's going on. And I haven't been able to stick entirely to my regimented, structured schedule of workouts and all the things that I normally do and my eating habits, whatnot. Mm-hmm. And it was just a moment of pause and complimentary to myself of like, you know what? Even despite all the hoopla you've been going through, you have still figured out how to maintain some sort of healthy habits. You've gotten your workouts in. All the ones that were miscellaneous and you're like, oh, this is a half effort and I only went 20 minutes instead of an hour or whatnot. And like, I made this dish to eat and it wasn't the most ideal, but it was pretty healthy. I'm like, they all still counted. They all still added up.
Because you've integrated some of that over time.
And my clothes really fit that I was like,
That's awesome.
I don't know about those. And I was like, oh, look at me.
That's great.
It was good. It was a really good moment.
That's great. That is really good. That always feels good when you get that kind of affirmation that you've integrated something that has staying power, if you will. Not to put too fine a point on it, but I just did.
I'll plug the show.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and mine is actually going to plug the show a little bit too.
Oh.
Yeah, my triumph has to do with an experience I had just a few days ago that was a first. Now it's very interesting. If you look at our show numbers and things like that, which we look at sometimes, we actually have listeners in over 20 countries, right? Which is great, right? And some places that you just wouldn't even think of, like, or imagine. Saudi Arabia, for example, right? Indonesia, another one. And that's exciting. And we've gotten messages and emails from people and things on Instagram from people that we don't know. And that's always fun, right? Because at first it's everybody you know, right?
Sure.
Everybody you know.
Sure.
And then they kind of the bands go further and further out. The ripples go further and further. I had a first, though, on this. The other day, I'm sitting in a coffee shop, minding my own business. And this lovely woman comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you." And she holds out her phone and she says, "Is this you?"
What?
And it was the Staying Power show tile logo.
Yeah.
She had it on Spotify, right, where you can find us. Right? You can find us as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. But Spotify is one of them. And she said, "Is this you?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she was the first person I've met in person who I could not we could not find a connection of common people that we know that would have led her to the show. And in fact, she said she found it when it was recommended and she was listening to another show. If you like this, you might like this. And she started listening, and she just happened to be in that coffee shop that I was in. And she wasn't listening to it in that moment, which would have been even weirder, right? But she did recognize me enough to go, that looks like the guy who's on that.
That's so cool.
It's kind of nice.
She's like, that's really him.
That's really him, right? It was, yeah.
That had to be so surreal for her too.
Yeah, a little bit. And I felt like a little bit of a celebrity in a moment for her. It was a little weird, but it was cool. I just thought that was kind of fun.
That is so, well, kudos to whoever that lady was.
Yeah.
To have enough gusto to come up to you, a total stranger. I mean, like, is this you? Because what if it wasn't?
What are you talking about? Well, then maybe she could have shared a good podcast with me.
I mean, you know, but very cool that she was willing to, you know, step out of maybe a slightly uncomfortable moment.
Yeah, it feels good. You know, I mean, Ashley, you know, we love doing this. We love talking about it. We have a great time in here, and we hope other people connect with it. And then when you get moments like that where you go, wow, people actually do.
It's just a confirmation of like, we must be doing something right.
Something right. Yeah, and that's great. All right, so that's mine. Okay, so Ashley, getting back to this, let's talk about some practical ways in which we can kind of move from manipulation, whether we know we're doing it or not, to kind of mindful relational building with these things. So that's really what we're talking about, right?
Sounds
is being
good.
aware of that. So first of all, and I think it might be helpful to frame this, what we're talking about, as I said before the break, letting go of the attempt to control will actually bring you closer to the goals you have, right, in your relationships than trying to control.
Yeah.
That sounds like paradoxical thinking, but it actually is proven to be true. And we sort of know this. Now, I think we can both think of examples in our life of maybe ones that somebody tried to fix us and it led to kind of a break, and vice versa. I think you have one about a break.
Yes,
Yeah?
I do. There was somebody I used to be friends with, and it was kind of interesting. Friendship was pretty good. There just always felt something like off. And I guess I couldn't name it in the beginning. As the friendship kept going, it started to feel like it was not comfortable. And I'm like, I don't feel accepted fully here. I feel semi-judged or something of that
Your
nature.
brain sensed coercion.
Yes.
Okay.
And eventually I put a little bit of space between me and this other person for a short period of time. And I just started to observe. And it really finally hit me that what is uncomfortable is I felt like I was always being controlled. Like I was best accepted when I was doing what they thought was right, what they thought was best. Now, I think sometimes the advice and whatnot and the constant like try to like nudge me in certain directions was because they didn't want me to make maybe mistakes that they made in the past. So they're trying to think like off of their experience for my best interest, how can I help her out? And in some instances, that's much appreciated. But when it's on everything, seemingly feeling like everything, eventually I'm like, I don't want this anymore.
Right.
And stepping away from that was strangely so relieving. And I noticed like the ripple effects of like later on, like I was like, oh wow, I just feel like an overall calmness. Like I don't feel like I'm on edge anymore, having to stand guard of like coercion or anything like that. Like I just felt like, oh, I can just relax and be myself, let my guards down. No one's trying to manipulate me and control me into being somebody I'm not. It was really interesting to observe what I felt and noticed after I had let that go.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. So the very thing that she was not wanting, she ended up getting. Right.
Yeah. And
exactly.
You know, I would say unfortunate, but maybe it's not.
Well, no, and not if that was going to continue to be something that was going to be done, right? Because in the end, what we want to be able to do is not do those things. And of course, not just over tolerate either, right? So how do that involves knowing who we are and where we start and stop with somebody else, right? So not crossing into their side of things, trying to fix all that. And also not allowing that to pull us outside of our own space. And that's a give or take, always open-ended, difficult to navigate situation. Experience I've had is the opposite, like the one that comes to mind. I have a very deep, close friend who is one of the people I'm closest with in my life. I've known her since I was 10. We reconnected as grown-ups many years later after a whole lot of experiences on both ends, and really developed something really special and fun. It was long distance, right? She lives in California. And so everything was verbal. Everything was talked about on the phone, that type of thing. Occasional visits, we'd see each other, that type of thing. But I was, being the anxious style that I am, and she, being the avoidant that she is, had some underlying points that we were going to clash on. And she's got a radar for coercion, a radar for inauthentic, and radar for, and really, and one of the great things about it is that she can tell before I have that I've disconnected with my own emotion and can point that out. Early on, it was difficult when she did that because I fought, right? Or I insisted she was wrong. And we ended up having a lot of clashes back and forth, right? And we stuck with it, thankfully. I think in part because we both did understand there were other things going on with us that were part of this occasionally volatile mix. Mm-hmm. There were just things she seemed to kick off in me, and there were things I just seemed to kick off in her, right? That can be valuable when somebody's a mirror like that. Mm-hmm. But from my side, I started to realize that I really wanted her to be a certain way for me.
Oh.
Yeah. I wanted a certain status. I mean, I won't lie. I was wanting something overtly romantic, right? Something there. Because I had pedestalized her in a lot of ways. And so it took me a while to realize that part, which wasn't good. But second, I was trying to do everything I could, right? Talk a certain way, be a certain way, whatever, or try and talk her out of her feelings, or talk her about how she was doing things, or, tell her why a certain way of doing things wasn't the best idea. And of course, she wasn't responding well to that at all. Of
course not.
Right? Of course not. Now, she would be the first to say she was bringing her own stuff in, right? That she was being unfair to me in the same way, or in a different way, but just as much. But what I had to start realizing was that what I was trying to do was I was trying to hold on to her for me. And I wanted this outcome from her because I thought that was going to fix me, because that was the problem. I mentioned at the top of the show, what is lacking in us that we think by fixing another person they're going to give us.
Yep.
I recognized that there was a part of me that was vacant, that I was trying to shape her, mold her, cram her into that shaped hole. And we had a couple of experiences where it just became really clear, okay, something's got to change now on my side and on her side, or this isn't going to go anywhere. Long story short, this was years ago. So this is, long story short, I recognized what I was doing. I was like, okay, I have to start seeing her for who she is. And then I have to keep deciding, maybe on a daily basis, even though she's different from me, even though she looks at things differently, does things differently, wants different things, do I want that in my life? And do I want her in my life? And let it just give me what it gives me. For a while, that was a day-by-day, conversation-by-conversation proposition. Years later, I can tell you, with not overstating it, is the most important decision I made in my life, not just for my relationship with her, but for my outlook on myself and all the things that I do in life, to do that. Because while I don't have the quote-unquote romantic outcome, I don't care. Because what I got in return, what I got instead was something so much bigger, deeper, more genuine, more real, more affecting, more connected than anything I've ever really had before. And that's because she just is who she is. And I've learned to be able to see that, love that. And she has been able to do the same for me. And that connectivity has been, that's why I don't call it an outcome, is that connectivity is the point, right, in that. So, yeah, like that's my story on that one. Right.
That was, very good story.
Yes.
Katie. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. But that's what we can have. And what's great about it is that I know that I have that there. I can have relationships of varying kinds in varying places that look different, romantic or otherwise, that can be authentic in connection, because I know what that looks like. And I know what it feels like to not try and force somebody.
There is something that is so incredibly painful, the feeling of the person that really says they care and that you love and they love you, but they don't accept you as your authentic self because it triggers something in them.
Yeah.
And they can't accept that side of you.
Yeah.
And trying to still live in a good space for yourself and yet be connected with that person, it's not really possible to do that.
No.
And, trying to fix somebody is not loving them.
No, that's so true.
It's
so
not.
true. It's not.
And it's not loving yourself either.
Exactly.
Because you're not really digging into yourself to see what's going on, and you're not accepting another person as everything that they are and everything that they're not. Exactly. And that's who they are.
And you're not paying attention to either of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're like making up some grandiose picture in your mind of what would be great. So as long as I play my part and I get them to play their part, we're going to have that happy ending over there.
Yep.
And there's many times where if you feel the urge, you pick it up, you sense it, of you're starting to control this person, and maybe you won't notice it. Maybe there needs to be some telltales. Maybe they need to point it out to you. You need to have like some sort of trigger, a word or something that's like, hey, kind of like the example you gave of like he was starting to ask her questions and she's like, you're trying to control me. That's a pretty blatant way to put that. Yeah. You might have other things, but start to try and catch yourself and pause and be like, is this for them or is this for me?
Yep.
Who is this serving and why?
Yeah. And what is uncomfortable in me that I don't want to confront? Because that was my big discomfort in the situation I gave up in my own life. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to lose this great connection I had. And I didn't want to feel lonely, quote unquote. I wanted to feel all these things. But that's manufacturing it. It's not taking it as it comes, right? Yep. There's an element of radical acceptance to this. That recognizing that the people that we care about are who they are, whether we always like it or not. And asking that question, is it still worth having them? Right? There's no clear answer to that. And the answer you have today may not be the same answer tomorrow, but that's reality, right? Because each relationship we have is literally only existing in the moment that we are in.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the challenge. And so, I mean, there's so many things we could talk about here in the last few minutes. We just don't have time to get into them. But even previous episodes we've talked about. What are your values, right? What are the values that you have? There are the people in your life. What values do they have? How well do you understand what those are? Where do you have commonalities? Maybe in this one area that's bugging you, there's nothing you can do about that. But what are the other common areas, common values you have that you can really build on, right? And you leave them the space and show them the acceptance of that they can find their way through that if they choose, when they choose to, if they choose at all. Because they sure as hell aren't going to choose it if they feel like you're forcing them to do it.
No.
Right?
Most people don't thrive in those kind of environments.
No, exactly. And so that's the thing. Can we care deeply about other people without controlling them? The answer is yes. However, if you're going, I'm not sure, then that means there's some exploring to do. Right?
Yep.
And if you're interested in any of those resources, what those might be, you can reach out to Ashley and I at stayingpowershow@gmail.com. We'd be happy to share any of those with you. We also have almost 100 episodes of content that you can go to and find some sort of episode which talks about things that, maybe one of the things you need to take a look at. But remember, no matter what it might be, we're so happy to have you as listeners and viewers. Thank you so much for following us on our YouTube page or for getting us as a podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us at our radio home, 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle. And in all those places, there are links to get a hold of us besides our email. So we hope to hear from you. We'd love to get show topic ideas. If you have questions, we'd love to answer them. So many things and so much more good stuff coming on the horizon we can't wait to tell you about. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We'll be back next week with another way to build a better life. And of course, I am just JD.
I'm always Ashley.
We'll see you later.